Welcome to the Legally Speaking podcast. You are now listening to season 7 of the show. I'm your host, Rob Hanna. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Martin Whitehorn. Martin graduated from the University of Southampton with a bachelor's degree in English and completed his GDL and LPC LLM at the University of Law. Martin is a property solicitor at 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐻 Solicitors, who has been featured in the Financial Times. One of the solicitors named a legal hero by the Law Society in 2023. Martin was recognised for his efforts on improving neurodiversity inclusion in the legal profession, together with supporting junior solicitors, aspiring solicitors, and Ukraine lawyers seeking a legal career in England and Wales. He also won the award for Rising Star of the Year at the 2021 Surrey Law Society Legal Awards. Martin is a committee member of the Surrey Junior Lawyers Division and an active member of the Junior Lawyers Division. With that all said, a very warm welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Rob. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And before we dive into all your amazing projects and experiences today, we do have an customary icebreaker question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality of the law if you've seen it?
Glad you raised if I've seen it, because that I have not seen it. So if it's not particularly enticed me, then I can't really give it a rating. I was expecting this question, but even trying to watch Suits in advance particularly appeals to me. I don't tend to watch lawyer shows.
With that, we're going to give it a 0 and move swiftly on to talk all about you, Martin. So to begin with, would you mind telling our listeners a bit about your background and your career journey?
Certainly. So that in terms of background career journey, so as you said, that I studied English at the University of Southampton. Afterwards, I found that not too many employers were interested in humanities degrees, so that I was looking into what other careers might suit me. And it was, in fact, my best friend, Sarah Wilson, who initially got the idea of me to pursue law, that she was doing the graduate diploma in law, and I thought, and I'd really considered law as a career before, but thought I'd rather have a job where there are skills that employers would want, rather than, for example, washing dishes for the rest of my life. And did that. One thing about me that is possibly worth adding is that I was very much the sort of person who presumed that, when I'm at university, once I get a degree, then that's what I need to do to get a job. And no, that was not the case. And also particularly in law, never applied for vacation schemes, training contracts, or work experience, thinking that again, what I need to do is get the law degree. Then I found myself corrected. And so that I very much appreciate the clarity careers that you give here, since that, for example, many listeners will have had the issue I had when trying to find a job after law, that I got my LPC LLM, I was then banging my head against the wall of the job advert saying, entry-level position, full training provided, but if you also have 6 to 12 months experience working in a law firm and not any other environment. So I was working in the civil service at the time, and there are transferable skills. And so now there's sometimes those I would like to have rather than must-haves. But again, I very much, on the one hand, I felt very much hamstrung myself by not doing work and the like. But then again, I'm 3 years qualified now, so I've been able to get there in the end.
Yeah, and you're doing fantastically well. So let's talk about the present, because you are a solicitor at 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐻 Solicitors, specialising in residential property. What is residential property? Tell us more about your practice area for those who might not be familiar.
And so if you ever moves home, then you need a residential property lawyer to assist you with that. And so the bread and butter of my work will involve helping people move home, or perhaps buying additional properties or selling additional properties, houses. That's not just in Surrey, but around. Actually, my sister's clients as far Roberts, I think, in Liverpool, and also there's whilst some residential property lawyers might just deal with conveyancing, where you convey land, i.e., for example, moving home. then like my duty West sisters, that we don't do just that. We like to get involved with tricky things. So that where I was doing help with lease extensions, adverse possession, another thing, declarations of trust. Some things which people leave to family lawyers or litigation lawyers. But a lot of things that are property related, then I'll do. And I'm glad to be at a firm where we'll feel the space to familiarize ourselves with tricky things. So, for example, you mentioned the Financial Times articles. That was when I familiarized myself with the Building Safety Act, and brought my colleagues up to speed with it, and from there was able to highlight my expertise in the FT of all places, which was very surprising, but we're glad to do.
Well, it's a fantastic achievement and rightly deserved, it has to be said. You completed your training contract at the same firm. What seats formed part of your training contract, and how did you decide to qualify into the residential property team?
So that my seats consisted firstly of residential property, then private client, and then family. We don't do family, but I was seconded to another firm to do that, for which I'm grateful for that. And then afterwards, commercial property. And as for residential property, that I compared to litigious areas, I very much appreciate having the situation that clients are coming to me because they've agreed something with someone. They aren't in a dispute or point of disagreement. And as for I guess residential property compared to commercial property, I think I very much appreciate helping individuals rather than businesses with property matters. That shows more appreciation when you're working for individuals. So that and the work it involves very much what drew me to the area.
Yeah, and I mean, having recently, well, within the last year, sort of moved home, the value of a good quality residential property lawyer is invaluable. That is for sure. And that personal touch and appreciation, I'm sure, must feel really good. With an extension of that, you've acted for clients all over England, Scotland, Canada, Europe, America, Malaysia, Hong Kong. Would you mind just sharing a bit more of the type of work you've been involved with all of that sort of international spread of work?
Certainly. So it's not been that I've been dealing with international properties, but dealing with international clients that's only solicitor qualified in England and Wales. But that I think that when clients from overseas, one such engine organisation actually helps, but also that when people call us up, then so my mother's side of the family is Czech. And so that I'm used to, for example, asking, how should I include any accents in your name? Am I spelling it properly? Which many overseas clients particularly appreciate. And so that's been one way in which I've stood out to people. Also, in terms of supporting others, so I mean supporting Ukrainian lawyers, and so as I said, being half Czech. My mother has stories of my Czech grandfather and grandmother growing up under the Nazi and Soviet regimes, and so which I've been very much reminded of when the Ukraine war started, and so from then I've been helping Ukrainian lawyers with their CVs and pursuing career in law, and also organised a webinar earlier this summer on just that topic with a whole bunch of other lawyers who've qualified here.
No, okay. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's the devil in the detail. Those little things that you mention really do sort of make you stand out to clients. I want to talk about some of the misconceptions surrounding residential property. What would you like our listeners to know about your area of law that might be some common misconceptions?
I think one key common misconception is that it's particularly easy or unskilled. It seems to be a common misconception. It's a very technical job, and that sometimes I'll be dealing with, let's say, purchases, for example, where there are a lot of issues with the property, particularly I've found with flats, and then trying to work to rectify these things. So also, what's been hovering in my mind is, why hasn't this been tackled before, particularly large blocks of flats, or as well can the the seller's solicitor, I have noticed a few of the things that I'm raising to them, since I think part of being part of the Law Society's conveyancing quality scheme is that you should try to be proactive where possible when you see a problem and try to solve it, rather than wait for someone to ask, what's up with this?
It's very true, isn't it? I'm a big believer in, if you see something, why don't you go out there and try and be the change and make a sort of positive impact on the world? And like you say, some of these things that have been around for a long time, it does make you think, but it's great that you think the other way and actually think about how you can solve things. What's been your most memorable case to date?
That's, I guess, one particularly memorable case, mainly because the client afterwards said, review along the lines of, Martin has changed my entire view of the legal profession, which the background to that was that he was looking to claim advert, he's happy with me sharing, he was looking to claim some land next to his property he owned by adverse possession. However, since he found previously when he was trying to sell that property that he couldn't, because of that unclaimed land, which he had understood to be within the boundaries of his own land, which initially belonged to the developer who set up the estate. And so it came to me because he hadn't been happy with his previous lawyers, which can be a warning sign, but for go ahead with the work. And it soon transpired that his previous lawyers had, so in adverse possession, one of the key things is that you should use the land without the consent of the owner. In this case, the previous lawyers got in touch with the developer owner's legal team and asked, do you mind if we claim adverse possession? To which, while the answer was no, we don't mind, the issue is that when even saying no, we don't mind can be considered consent. And so that I had the issue of explaining to him that I don't think you'll be able to claim adverse possession, but also and this is where commercial awareness for those thinking of how to do that comes into play, is that in this case, adverse possession didn't even seem that relevant, because it takes a long time to acquire land by adverse possession, even if the land registry agrees that you can claim it, longer if they say that you can't. And even if you do, you only get what's called possessory title, as in you are only showing that you are in possession of the land, not that you are the absolute outright owner, which would come later, which can still present an issue on a sale. So it's just why don't you offer to buy the land if you're already in touch with the developer's legal team? And so we made an offer, and while the developer's legal team asked for more, that it was still a great outcome, because that the developer was actually willing to sell the land. And so the land was bought, the application is being registered at land registry. And now the client's able to do mortgage and to sell the property, which he was very much wanting to do, having it found it less profitable to rent out the property. So it's been a wonderful and memorable bit of work in terms of coming towards you with uncertain situation, but then being able to help them with that and to make his words change his life and change his view of the legal profession, which I was glad to do.
Fantastic! What a wonderful story, and what a great way to demonstrate client satisfaction. But you made a good point about maybe when they originally came to you, there might be a warning sign there. That's a good point to make in terms of just because somebody is necessarily coming to you with work, you need to ensure that they're going to be a good fit for you as a client, given their previous experience. So I appreciate you sharing that. Let's go back to the Financial Times, because we've glossed over it, but this is a huge feat, right? You featured in the Financial Times. You detailed the aftermath of the 2017 fire at Grenfell Tower. How significant is the introduction of the Building Safety Act 2022? What does the Act aim to address?
That, in my view, incredibly significant, since the aim of the Act is that leaseholders of high-rises should not be having to pay for rectifying defects in their properties, a particular focus on fire safety defects comes to mind following Grenfell, and with the idea that costs are then passed on to the landlords, particularly where they were the developers responsible for building properties with such defects. And that so when the question cropped up of that my lawyer won't assist me with buying the flat, what's because of the Building Safety Act, what's the issue? Then I was glad to give clarity in my answer. I think it also helps that in the Your Questions column, which I contributed to, that which very much focuses on money, that I very much focused on the specific sums that the Building Safety Act protections afford you if you qualify, which is its own complicated thing. But by being clear about the sums that can be saved if you qualify, then I think that particularly helped me. And when I've been talking to other firms, that often it's specifically the firms that have their own knowledge lawyers or the like, who spend the time researching this thing, who are then also working on it, because since this largely applies to many flats, not all, but many, which are the 5 stories or at least 11 meters, although apparently crucially 11 meters of residential block from the bottom to the floor of the top block. But getting into some more detail than we need. And so if you're in such a flat, then this is going to be an issue for you, that even if mortgage lenders say that we will lend on these purchases, then you still need to be able to sell your property in the sense that you qualify for these protections or not, in order to adequately inform buyers. And so that, in my opinion, that you're able to do the work and the clients are ready to pay for it, then you should be able to help people with making sure that they are able to sell such a significant property as that, or additional properties, as the case may be.
Yeah, no, and again, thank you for articulating that and really sort of educating us on the importance of the act. It's tremendous work you've been doing, and obviously as an extension of that, you've received lots of incredible market recognition, and of course one of those was you were named one of the solicitors named as a legal hero by the Law Society, no less, which is an incredible achievement. Time for a short break from the show. Calling all lawyers who want to work smarter, not harder. Are you tired of following old processes just because? Or do you feel like your current setup is letting you down? Then I recommend you try 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿, the legal software that streamlines your workflow and keeps your entire firm organized. With 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐬's cloud-based legal software, you can quickly and easily manage your cases, billing, documents, and calendar, all from one place. They've even got an easy-to-use mobile app, so you can stay on top of your cases wherever you go. Join the tens of thousands of legal professionals worldwide who trust 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿 for all of their legal needs. It's the legal software that works for the modern law firm. Dive in, start using it right away with their 7-day free trial. Sign up now at 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐿.com/legally speaking. That's CLIO.com/legally speaking. Now back to the show. You're recognized for your efforts on improving neurodiversity inclusion in the legal profession. Can you explain what initiatives you've worked on?
Certainly, that the law societies seem to be particularly happy with my efforts in championing neurodivergence in the profession, since that's being autistic myself, and sometimes I may be tripping over my words, so please do excuse me on that. But as I feel that is only been particularly recently that reasonable adjustments have come to the fore in terms of how firms and other organisations employing lawyers can support. And since I seem to particularly get on well with other neurodivergent people, then it emphasises that every neurodivergent person in the law I've met has their own skills and strengths, often from their condition. So I know a dyslexic lawyer who corrects a colleague's typos when drafting a document, but she had to spend that much more effort on paying attention to detail. An epileptic lawyer whose technological knowledge is very indispensable to her employer in her practice area, and a lawyer with depression, and or as it says on your own side, a lawyer with depression and anxiety who networks more effectively due to being open about her mental health. So that, as I've written blogs for the University of Law on this subject, I've spoken at various events, most recently at the Legal Neurodiversity Network, which is a network of large firms and employers looking to make sure they're doing the best for everyone on this front. Also, moving away from neurodivergence, as what I've been giving to Ukrainian lawyers, as I've highlighted, looking over CVs and so organising webinars to give clarity on career into law. Related to that, I feel is my support for aspiring and junior lawyers that are via being part of Surrey Junior Lawyers Division. And I do recommend any aspiring junior lawyers join their local junior lawyers division or equivalent groups, since it can be a wonderful platform to help others. Is that, as I've had a few junior lawyers approach me because they were being pressured into committing ethical breaches by their firms, and so then because they have been active in the local junior lawyers division space, and they were aware of me, and I was able to signpost them to appropriate support and make it help them feel vindicated that no, this is not being appropriate, what you're being asked to do. And also I contributed to Law Society's Reasonable Adjustments Guidance on Disability and Neurodivergent Inclusion. I'm using disability specifically here to refer to physical disability, differing that from neurodivergence. Since again, that's another topic close to my heart, but one which I'm not particularly able to speak from personal experience. And so years I've been doing what sort of teams of diversity and inclusion people have been doing with regards to neurodivergent inclusion. I have been trying to help Ukrainian lawyers because that is, as I said, it's been very much reminding me of the Czech side of my family. And whilst it seems unfair to just on this podcast reduce them to a lesson to me on to help others like Ukrainian lawyers, then as far as the podcast goes, and that's been, I feel, a key driver in terms of me sympathizing with Ukrainians and wanting to help. So I would say generally those are the main spheres which were highlighted by the Law Society as helping me, making me stand out, and which I feel, and even only then winning being one of the winners of the Legal Hero Award, but then also being invited to the opening of the legal year in the beginning of October was an honor and a privilege, and not what I was expecting when I've been doing work to help others, but it's nice to have my efforts recognised. I say, life has been great.
Absolutely, and rightly recognised as well. And congratulations. To what extent do you believe the legal profession has progressed in terms of fostering neurodiversity inclusion?
Well, I've been entering the profession fairly early. I remember speaking to some people who say it's 10 years ago. There still seemed to be a conversation about as to whether neurodivergence could be cured, and so in that way we've come a long way. And with neurodivergent, I think there's been a lot of progress compared to physically disabled people. For who colloquially feel concerned that they, at least in private practice, not able to contribute the same number of billable hours as their counterparts. That's something where progress seems to be needed. But in terms of neurodivergent inclusion, I think that I've been invited to webinars alone seems to highlight that this is an issue which we understand that there is value in having employees who think differently and can come to different conclusions and come up with different ideas that will whether I'd be featured in the Financial Times if it weren't for my autism is one question that comes to mind. So and there's the legal neurodiversity as well, which I mentioned. So I think that a lot more people I feel confident in able to publicly announce whether they are neurodivergent, like I've been doing, and it seems, and others have been encouraged to speak out after my example, which has been excellent. That I, in turn, I guess, product of the time, in that I feel comfortable in speaking about being autistic, and Sam may not always be able to talk about that without stuttering a bit. He says stuttering with the word stuttering, but then it's something I'm very glad to do.
Yeah, and I must say it's you're a phenomenal role model, and it's been an absolute pleasure sort of hearing, your version of events of how you're helping shape the legal profession, and work is being done. But what more can lawyers and firms be doing to ensure they create a more inclusive environment for those who are neurodiverse?
So I mentioned the Law Society Reasonable Adjustments Guidance, which gives excellent examples of what firms and organisations are currently doing to support. That you're particularly keen, then you always try to find diversity and/or disability specialists. But also, I think sometimes just taking a while to think for yourself as to how might this be received. So, for example, that's people may send their website for job vacancies that, I'm an equal opportunities employer, or we welcome people from various backgrounds. But then that can just feel a bit copy and pasted. But if you, as I said, if you say that we appreciate people from various backgrounds because we value diversity of thought, and it's valuable to have, whether neurodivergent or takes characteristic, it's valuable to have a variety of people who think in different ways, then I think that helps to humanize and make it clearer that you are action and thought into what you are doing. And another key thing is just to ask the person in question as to what helps them. I think there's often a lot of assumption by employers to do things on various assumptions without communicating to the employee in question. So by all means, do involve your employee, and it need just be for neurodivergent conditions. It could just be that people think that, so and so surely won't be interested in doing this because this, but if you haven't asked so and so, then how would you know?
Yeah, very, very true. And I think you make a very good point about don't just put stuff on your website. I see this by a lot of organizations that put a lot of things on the website that are copy and pasted, but actually showcasing the why and the rationale and making people feel like, actually, okay, what you're saying is not just sort of what you think we want to hear, but we mean it. And these are the values and what we endorse as an organization. Very, very important. You keep immensely busy, Martin. We've touched on this, but I want to ask a little bit more because you're the committee member for the Surrey Junior Lawyers Division and an active member of the Junior Lawyers Division. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the roles of these organizations in shaping the legal profession and supporting junior lawyers and your roles within them?
Certainly. So that Surrey Junior Lawyers Division is a local group supporting aspiring into junior lawyers in and around Surrey. We have social events, but also we have the efforts of our universities and colleges representative, and now my chair, Bethany Walker, with a much improved outreach program to schools and universities to give clarity on life in the law. And the Junior Lawyers Division, or Junior Sisters Network, has the additional hat of the Law Society's Junior Sisters Network and the Independent National Junior Lawyers Division. That's the Law Society's national junior lawyer version of such local groups, which also works to support aspiring and junior lawyers through webinars, giving clarity on progressing into or through the legal profession. It's an annual conference as well. But also, that is the Junior Sisters Network that will lobby organizations like the Law Society on its recommended minimum salary. And so so this year has secured the Law Society having a bigger increase for people SQE so 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿 qualifying examination candidates, or 𝐸I, as I sometimes like to call it, and other types of trainee or apprentice solicitors. Also, it lobbies the SRA when it comes to, for example, recently there's been the SRA saying that firms should be doing more to monitor mental health and bullying in the workplace. And the Junior Lawyers Division has been highlighting to the SRA that this will be markedly more difficult for junior lawyers to do than those in more senior positions, which the SRA has since recognised. So if you have as often if you have an issue which you feel is hard to deal with at any as a regional level, but we deal with more nationally, then do get in touch with the Junior Solicitors Network, since they are keen to know how they can help and lobby on your behalf nationally.
Yeah, and doing a tremendous job, it absolutely has to be said. Martin, we have gone through a lot of ground in a very short space of time, but I would like to pick your brain one final time for a piece of advice. What piece of advice do you have for aspiring solicitors who may want to qualify into residential property, or for those who are unsure about the area of law they want to specialise in?
So there's that. I think exposure is to areas of law is key, and so when you are getting into the legal profession, one thing that I might have done to try to give me evidence demonstrating law firms that I was interested in the law would be attending, for example, my local magistrate's court or other courts where they allow the public access, because then you can more easily say to employers that, oh, I've been going to court, I've been seeing these things, I see your firm deals with such cases, but I see that you do other things which I'd be interested in doing. Do you have any space for me? And so don't do what I did, as in not applying for anything, or which then me trying to, having got my LPCLM, trying to find work, but then coming up against walls which I might have been better off finding out about earlier. But yes, try to expose yourself to various areas of law. Attending court can be a good way to do this. When you are doing your undergraduate law degree or whatever equivalent, often doing applications in the very first year, because a lot of organizations will recruit 2 years ahead. So that's often the best way to try to get a job as you're leaving your third year of law, is to start making applications during your first year. And another thing that people often miss out, but if firms are offering vacation schemes and training contracts, do the vacation scheme first, because as much as you are trying to convince the employer that you're great for them, then it's also they want to know that they've adequately convinced you that they would be great for you. And it's hard to be convinced of that if you haven't initially done a vacation scheme or work experience at their firm and been exposed to their various practice areas, to their culture, what they value, wise, and if they can't be sure you're making an informed decision from your personal experience of them, then it is very hard for them to feel that they stand out to you out of all the other places and people in the individual law firms, the individuals making that want to feel they've been specially selected. So, and in relation to that, don't just copy and paste applications without changing anything. Otherwise, there are going to be issues when people say, well, they said interest in corporate law, but we didn't do corporate, or it's an interview that if they're asking what is intellectual property, then that's going to be an issue for you. So, yes, that it gets exposure to various areas of law first before you specifically feel that you want to apply for something. I like to hope that's the way I've described residential property that's been appealing to some, but unless you're actually working in that environment, then you don't know until you've tried.
Amazing insights. Really, really good, valuable, advice there. I would encourage people to just rewind that, listen to that, make some notes, because invaluable wisdom shared. Martin, this has been an absolute blast. If people want to get in touch with you, or they want to know more about Julia West Solicitors, Surrey Junior Lawyers Division, or the Junior Lawyers Division, where can they find out more? Feel free to shout out any social media handles or any website links. We'll also share them with this episode for you too.
Well, that both Surrey Junior Lawyers Division and Julia West Solicitors, we have websites, but if you want to get in touch with me, then I am on LinkedIn, and just type in Martin Whitehorn and you should find me soon enough. Particularly, one thing I found with LinkedIn is that if you're having trouble finding someone and then tapping the name of their employer, like in my case, US listers, but I think there are that many Martin Whitehorns out there, so you should be able to find me. So yes, contact me on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Well, I'm sure you will. And I would just like to say a huge thank you, Martin. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. From all of us on the Legally Speaking podcast, we'd like to wish you lots of continued success with your career. But for now, over and out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like the content here, why not check out our world-leading content and collaboration hub, the Legally Speaking Club, over on Discord. Go to our website, www.legallyspeakingpodcast.com, for the link to join our community there. Over and out.